Hey guys, Jim Edwards here along with
Stu Smith.
And today we want to welcome you back to the Sales, Copywriting, and Content Marketing Hacks podcast, which if you're not a subscriber to yet, you need to be. And actually, I have a cool idea that, Stu, we need to talk about that I just thought of. But anyway, with teasers for the podcast. So remember that. We're going to talk about that. So here's the thing. What Stu and I want to talk about today are conversion rates, because everybody and their brother ultimately always asks, hey, what's a good conversion rate for X? What's a good conversion rate for my opt-in page? What's a good conversion rate for my emails? What's a good conversion rate for my sales page? What's a good conversion rate for my store? What's a good conversion rate for blah, 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 blah. And they get all worked up. And the short answer for me of what is a good conversion rate is a good conversion rate is a conversion rate that's better than my last conversion rate. Now, I'm not being a smart ass with that, because when you first start something, any conversion is a good conversion rate because that gives you a baseline. And what you want to do from there is continually test and raise your conversion rate. But a good conversion rate at the beginning is any conversion whatsoever.
Yes.
And then we want to raise it. So that's not a cop-out answer, but I know you guys really want us to give you specific numbers, because that's what everybody wants, specific number. Hey, like, Stu, what's a good number for my push-ups? You know, what's a good number for push-ups for a guy my age, or pull-ups? Or, hey, Stu, what's your run time for 1.5 miles?
Right.
You've never told me your run time for 1.5 miles, by the way. You don't share.
Which one? It depends. Which one do you want? Do you want the 25-year-old Stu? Do you want the
I want the
Stu?
You're younger than me, Stu. That's the number I want. You know all my numbers. I've never heard your numbers.
I'll share with them.
But everybody wants to compare themselves to somebody else,
right.
Even though you should, in the end, and I'm saying this tongue in cheek, but not really. In the end, the only thing you should be comparing yourself in fitness is yourself.
Right.
And the only thing in business you should be comparing yourself to is how you were doing before and whether you can get better.
So is that growth curve moving in the right direction?
Yeah. Yes. What are your thoughts on all this, Stu, before we kind of brainstorm some
I think, once again, as one of my favorite answers is, it depends. It depends on what method of how are you getting people to your page?
Where's your traffic coming from?
Where's it coming from? Is it coming from social media? Is it coming from Google ads? Is it coming from Facebook ads? Is it just people emailing you?
Right.
And now you have a one-on-one opportunity to hit them one more time.
Because your conversion rate off of a Facebook post is going to be very different than the conversion rate off of an email that you send to your big list.
Yes.
Which is going to be different than a conversion rate off of an ad to a cold list.
Yes.
So that's a great point. Way to go, Stu.
Thank you.
Stu. Way to go. That's a great point. And so that's something that you have to really consider is the traffic source as well.
Yeah. I try to get things in the double digits. If I can get things in the double digits, I am really happy. So I tend to avoid the things that only get me 1.5, 2% conversions.
Why is that? Is it a self-esteem issue?
Yes, that's what it is. No, it's just more bang for the buck.
Okay.
I find that I personally love answering emails. Right.
Okay.
They give me ideas to write about, and I have over 50% conversion rate when I send somebody an email answering a question about whatever topic that is. And then underneath my answer is always a signature, section of my website that kind of directs them to the product that I just discussed.
Right.
And that is always a huge one. Now, that takes more time, obviously.
Right.
Right. And a little more effort, but I love doing that. And it also gives me ideas to write bigger articles about, which I can then spread that out across the internet, which therefore kind of goes back into that bigger picture of the conversion rate, how people find me. So they're all kind of interlinked together. And I think, spreading, what's a better word? I guess diversifying your efforts in all different methods of getting people to your website is key, and you're going to have different conversions on whatever those are.
Yes. And you brought up some really good points that in our pre-show we didn't bring up, but I have added to the magic whiteboard that I think are important. But the other thing to think about, again, yes, a 50% conversion rate on emailing back somebody is cool. But if you could get but that's only one person. So for every 2 people you make a sale, and let's say that takes 30 minutes of your time, 15 minutes. I know you can leverage it. But on the flip side, if you can get a 1.5% conversion rate off of 10,000 people by running an ad, that's 150 sales.
Good point.
And that's, once you run the ad, then you're not really doing anything more but watching the conversion rate and what you spend. So I think again, it's not, I have one part of my business where 90% of all of the new sales come from advertising actually to cold and warm traffic. Another part of my business, I can't run ads for. It doesn't work. It's all hot traffic that once they're on my list, then they want to buy from me. And so I understand. You brought up some really, really good points, though, about that. So let's kind of talk about this and brainstorm through some of these things so people can really see what we're talking about here. And so here we are at the magical whiteboard, and I kind of wrote down, these are modifying factors. And when you're thinking about the traffic, it's the time involved, it's the effort involved, what's the source. You also got to look at the factor of price, because it just goes to show, if you're charging $10,000 for something, your conversion rate is not going to be as high.
Yeah.
All other factors being the exact same as if you were selling something for $100. It's just not going to be as high, meaning the total number of people that are going to buy is just not going to be as high, because not as many people can charge $10,000 or can pay $10,000. So, but on the flip side, a 0.5% or a 0.1% conversion rate at $10,000 is going to make you more money than a 5% conversion rate at $100.
True. Yep.
So, that just is what it is. So, but in general, okay, and let's do this with cold traffic, warm traffic, and hot traffic. If we're talking about an opt-in, and these are just my numbers, okay? These aren't necessarily Stu's numbers, but we'll get Stu's numbers. And Stu can be blue.
Okay.
We never use blue. So for me, cold traffic on an opt-in, honestly, somewhere around 20% is pretty good. If I'm doing a lead magnet, 20 to 25%, I'm cool. Warm traffic, I'm hoping. So warm traffic would be something like, I'm thinking an opt-in would be an affiliate or a JV partner, somebody who's promoting my webinar or something along those lines. I'm looking for a 50%, 40 to 50%. And then hot traffic, they know me, they're already on my list. They're just making a decision whether they want what I'm putting out there or not. I'm looking somewhere around 55% plus. That's me. Now, Stu, if you were doing a webinar or offering a lead magnet or sign up for my special report or sign up for my newsletter or something like that, do you have any sense for what these numbers might be for you?
Yeah, they're in the same ballpark. However, I'm really happy if I can get 20%. So I would say I'm probably somewhere closer to 10, because I'm usually happy with 10 with some of those cold traffic ones. But like I said, the warmer traffic is definitely up in the 25 to 50% range.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So a sales page where I'm actually sending them somewhere to buy something, and this is assuming it's not a recurring billing product. It's just a, hey, go buy a wizard, go buy whatever. I'll be honest with you, cold traffic, if you can get a 1 to 2%, you're just sending cold traffic straight in.
True.
1 to 2% is great. Warm traffic, 1 to 2%. And if it's hot traffic, they know me, 5 to 10%. Those are good numbers for me. I don't know if does it.
Like I said, I spend very little time on cold traffic.
Okay.
The only time I do spend money on cold traffic is like Facebook ads. But then again, I don't know if that's necessarily cold because it's kind of
probably
my genre. It's my genre. It's just people who don't know me, but they're interested in fitness.
Well, then that's warm traffic.
Yeah. Okay. Good definition. But getting them to my sales page is, I actually just told you all those numbers up there are sales page numbers. Like I can get sometimes, like I said, 10%, not on cold traffic, but like if you slide it over, I can get 10% on warm and hot traffic.
Conversion?
Yeah, pretty regularly.
Okay.
Like I said, I'm very happy with that.
Yeah, that's real good.
Yeah. So I just wanted people to know that 10% makes me very happy. Now,
well, 10% makes me happy for sales too.
Honestly. Absolutely. Now, however, have I been okay with 5%? Yes, I have been. It just kind of depends on what I'm trying out. And once again, these are all tests, and I find out what works, and I just keep hitting it. And sometimes it goes up a little more, like it goes from 5 to 8 to 10. Sometimes it starts mellowing out and coming back down. So it just, it's
okay.
There is no, I guess my best answer to this one is there's just no standard percentage that I can go into an ad or an article or something that pulls people to my site and say, I know this is going to hit 40%, right? It's just really, you have to wait and see what happens, like you said, and test. Because this is the meat and potatoes right here. I mean, this is the test. This is the information. Whenever you put a test out there, this is the information on what justifies whether or not that test was good or not.
Yeah. Well,
so that's why this is very important. Yeah.
Every test is good and there's no failure. It's just results. And the thing is, the process for this is see what happens, test, tweak, repeat. That's all it is. And you will get it to the point where, you know what? I mean, I have like 7-day ebook site that's pretty much tested and tweaked out. It does what it does based on the effort, based on the traffic, based on the effort, based on the time that I put into it. It does what it does. And I know what those numbers are. And it's the same thing like with an order bump. If you don't have an order bump, then it's kind of hard for anybody to take it.
True.
As opposed to, but you've been doing more, and I don't really do that much with the order bumps. When I come out with the Copywriting Secrets book, one of the order bump I'm going to have right on the main page is for the audiobook version. But I mean, do you do much with order bumps? I mean, hey, buy this.
I do. I mean, there's all, like a lot of times there'll be, for instance, like someone's interested in buying the book.
Right.
And there'll be just a little, well, I guess it's not an order bump though, but I'll offer the ebook version as well.
That's an order bump.
Okay. I'll just make sure, because sometimes I get my upsell, downsell type process and all that mixed up. But yes, so I have that automatically set up in the Shopify site. And that's a nice one. That's a nice one to see, because I do offer them a discount on the second purchase or the third purchase.
Any thought on that? Any ideas?
That's, I have to look.
Okay.
I have to look at that. I have a little app on my process that can tell me what that is. But it's significant. It works. I notice it, put it that way. In all the sales that come up, I do notice that people are taking advantage of the order bump on there. So.
Okay. So this one, the next one, upsell, OTO, this is an opportunity to buy something after they bought the first thing. So whatever you want to call it, upsell, one-time offer, it's you just paid. You've just put in your credit card, you've whacked the button, you're in. So then the next question becomes, and whether it's a one-click upsell where they don't have to enter their stuff again, or whether they have to enter it in again. We're not going to talk about mechanics of that. But at this point in my frame of reference, it's pretty much all hot traffic at this point, meaning they may have come in and they were cold or warm or hot, but they just bought something. So as far as I'm concerned, it's hot traffic. I'm not making a distinction between cold and for everybody, just because we're throwing this around and we're assuming that you know this, cold traffic is people who know they have a problem and have no idea that you exist or that there's even a solution. So there's, and typically cold traffic corresponds to running ads, running Facebook ads, running Google AdWords ads, buying ads from other websites and stuff like that. So they have no clue about you. They're just seeing an ad and seeing you for the first time. Warm traffic is they know they have a problem. They know there's a solution out there somewhere. They don't know about you and they don't know about your product, but they know that there's something out there. Again, this can be ads. A lot of times this is affiliate stuff. So you get introduced by someone else. Warm traffic can also be articles that you put out, articles that other people have reviewed your products, things like that. And then hot traffic is people that know who you are and they know about your products. They may not know about this product specifically, but they know who you are. Typically, they're on your list. They subscribe to your blog. They're paying attention to you on social media. Okay. But at this point now, these people they're hot. And for me, an upsell, I'm using the wrong color. That's okay. Doesn't matter. It's my whiteboard. I'll use whatever color I want. I'm looking for a 10 to 30% take rate. 30% I am super stoked about. Yes. 20% I'm happy about. 10% I'm okay with, but I'm always thinking about how can I make it better. But these are my numbers that I'm looking at. And again, you might think, wow, Jim, that's low. Or others might, wow, Jim, that's high. It doesn't really matter what you think about my numbers. I'm just sharing that with you. Again, it also going to depend on the price and whether it's recurring or it's a one-time offer type thing. If you're doing something like a $1 trial, then you really want that number as high as you can, because then you get into things like stick rates and what have you. So, if you can get a 50% take rate on a $1 trial, but you only have a 10% stick rate, then really what you have is a 5% OTO rate. So it just depends. In the end, it matters how much money you're putting in your pocket.
Yeah. And
that's why a lot of times when we won't talk about percentage, we'll talk about basically dollar values. Each, so that you can ultimately get to the point where once somebody runs through your funnel, you can say, okay, anybody that comes through my funnel, cold traffic or from this traffic source, is worth, say, $57. And so that you can spend up to $57 to acquire a customer through that channel, whether that $57 is an ad expense or your own personal time expense or paying somebody to create content or what have you. But that's ultimately where you want to get. But that's not what people want to talk about. People want to know, and we're back to answering the question that we said, what's a good conversion rate? So that's why we're talking about this. Do you have any thoughts on this as far as what's a good conversion rate for you on an upsell or an OTO?
No, I need to do more upsells. I don't generate enough of those. Okay. And I don't even, in fact, as soon as this podcast is over, I'm going to set one up. So okay. I have a great idea for one. So,
all right, yeah. Cool.
Yeah.
And then abandoned cart recovery, I don't have any of that. I don't have any of that. Because we don't really operate that way. But you, on the other hand, you told me something kind of interesting. I don't know if you want to share it or not.
No, I don't mind. Yeah, actually, on Shopify, there's just a process that, will automatically send an email out to anybody who left something in the cart and checked out, and without paying. And I fine-tuned it a little bit, because typically it gets this. Sometimes it's foreign orders and they see the shipping rate and they're like, whoa, I'm paying twice as much for shipping as I am for the book. I'm out of here. So
move to America.
Right. What I do is I send them a coupon code to save 15%. Right. So yeah. So I get a pretty good recovery rate for that abandoned cart. Whereas I think the regular average is like a 7% recovery rate. I get a 17% recovery rate.
So that's better than twice the average by offering that. So that's a little ninja trick that Stu just gave you. Instead of sending them an email
saying, hey, you forgot to pay.
Yeah. Well, in Funnel Scripts, I've got a whole abandoned cart email sequence. It basically it's, hey, you didn't, I just wanted to make sure something happened. Something didn't happen. You had a problem, let us know. And then you reiterate and all this other stuff. But this is perfect. Hey, I just want to bribe you to come back and check out. Here's 15% off. Don't share this with your friends. That's awesome. And then as far as email sequences, that's really hard. But ultimately what you want to look at with your email sequences is CTR, click-through rate. That's ultimately the conversion rate that you care about.
Yep.
And again, the source of the email, whether it's your email, somebody else's email, stuff like that, you can ultimately translate that into a dollar value per click, especially when you're operating with affiliates. And you've done, when we were doing tons and tons of affiliate webinars, I could tell you really closely how much money you were going to make based on the number of clicks that you got over to the webinar registration page. Like spooky Nostradamus close. Nice. But that was because we'd done that webinar 50 times with 50 different affiliates.
Right.
And so that's really what you're looking for, though, with emails. And again, a click-through rate on an email, depending on the size, depending on the recency, the frequency, the targeting, everybody just kind of blasts their email list. Your click-through rate could be anywhere between 2% and 50%.
Right.
Just depending on deliverability and your subject line and all that other stuff. This is the big unknown when you're doing email. So I don't know if you have any thoughts or experience or stuff with click-through rates on emails or feelings.
No, I mean, I have a warm list, hot list of all customers are on my email list. And
right. So the only people are people that have bought something?
Yes.
Oh, okay. All right.
And I do that a couple times a month.
Okay. That makes a big difference too.
Yeah.
If you've been, if it's prospects versus buyers, that makes a huge difference as far as your click-through.
Yeah. Now I do have a return customer rate of over 50%. So that's nice. Yeah.
That's good.
Once people know me, they keep coming back and upgrading and doing stuff like that. So
that's because there's no alternatives to
none.
There you go. So anyway, guys, that's I've never really talked about that before. I feel kind of, I don't know how I feel. Just because, I've never really, that's kind of like pulling your shorts up and letting everybody see what you got.
Well, let me ask you a question. All of those things, like I realize I don't do all of them and I want to do some of them. So do you have any suggestions for wizards for our listeners if you wanted to do any one of those things, to make your opt-in page better, to make your upsell email better, or whatever? Yeah.
The number one thing you got to understand with an opt-in page is, or a sales page or any kind of page where you're trying to get somebody to make a decision, the number one leverage point is the headline. The first words out of your mouth on your video, the first words that they see on the page. You want to increase conversion, test your headline. Number one thing. On an email, number one thing that you have to test is the subject line, because the subject line is what gets them to open your email. You can have the best email in the world, but if your subject line sucks and nobody opens it, you're never, ever going to have them read the email. So focus on headlines and subject lines. If that was all you could focus on, that would be the stuff to focus on. And as far as wizards and stuff to help you with that, we've got tons of headline wizards in the Jim Edwards Method Premium. We've got tons of headline scripts in the in funnel scripts. We've got subject line scripts and wizards inside, or specifically one that will help you write subject lines. But the cool thing is that you can actually use headlines as subject lines. You could use the subject line wizard, you could use the headline wizards, you could use a short headline wizard. There's all kinds of stuff, but those are the number one and number two highest impact points for anybody as far as trying to increase conversion. More so than testing price, more so than anything else, is just the more people you can get to see your message, the more people are going to buy, try, click, or opt in. Now, after you've nailed that pretty well and you're not having these giant leaps in conversion, then you start looking at other stuff like your bullets, your price, your story, your copy connectors, your sub headlines, all the other things in your sales copy.
I think you should show it in block form.
Right now?
Right now.
Okay.
We're going to finish this podcast with your new block form method.
Okay. So the number one thing you're going to test is headlines, then subject lines, then sub-headlines, then price, and then your story. Oh, look. Headlines, subject lines, price, story. And you know, the thing is, the cool thing is that this might raise your conversion rate by 0.2%. Add these up, Stu. So 0.2%. Let's say then that your subject line gets, no, we're going to skip the subject line for right now, because the subject line is like the big whammy, in a cool way at the end. So let's say different headline gets you a 0.2% conversion bump. Let's say that your subheadlines, you test those and you can get a 0.2% conversion bump. Let's say that you really hone in on your price and you're able to get I actually had a 0.5% conversion bump one time by raising my price by $10. So that's for real. I went from $29 to $39 and I had a 0.5% raise in conversion rate. So 0.5, and then we really work on our story and we're able to raise our conversion rate by 1%. Okay. What does that add up to? Or not 1%, 0.1%, just
0.1%. Okay.
Okay. Not getting crazy. What's that?
So we're at 1.0 right now.
Okay. So 1.0, let's say we already only had a 1% conversion rate on a sales letter. We just doubled our revenue. We just doubled our conversion. But the thing is, if you were breaking even at 1%, all of a sudden you're into pure profit. If you're selling $100 product, and let's say you're selling 100, you're spending a buck a click, okay, just a buck per visitor. So you're spending 100, you're making 100, you're breaking even. That's what people, oh, this sucks. This is a ripoff. This is bullshit. I don't want to do this anymore. This internet thing doesn't work. Now all of a sudden you go to a 2% conversion rate. For every $100 you spend, you're bringing in $200. You're literally buying $20 bills for $10. How many times a day would you do that?
Several.
All of a sudden you go on to be a stud. Okay. Now we got our new 2% converting website. Now this is the whammy. Let's say we're promoting with email and we're getting, for every 1,000 emails that get sent, we get 50 people, or we get 100 people to show up. Okay. So that's a 10% conversion. Okay. 1,000, 100. So that's a 10% conversion rate. Let's say we can double the conversion rate by just changing the subject line and get twice as many people to open our email and click through. Same number of emails sent, but we've just doubled the total amount of traffic that we get with a single change in the subject line. Now, and I've actually seen it higher than that, a real case scenario, 5 times as many click-throughs. So let's say that we get 5 times as many people to click through. So we send 1,000 and we get 50% click-through. So we get 500 people coming up to our site, where we now have a 2% conversion rate. How many sales is that? A lot more than you had before, with a shitty subject line and none of this stuff being tested. So the point is, I mean, it's a whole lot more.
Yeah.
So the point of all of this is that don't compare yourself to us. Don't compare yourself to numbers that you see chuckleheads throwing out on the internet every once in a while. Just compare yourself to where you are, and then get better and better and better and better as you go through. It's kind of like if I compared myself to Stu, or an 18-year-old that works out with Stu when I started training with him 6 years ago, I would have just given up. But when I compare myself to where I am now to where I was then, it's night and day. But if you look at the incremental improvement over 5 years, it's nothing spectacular day to day, but it's just it's the commitment to the constant, never-ending improvement and sticking with it.
It's a good point. Maybe that's why we get along, because our business model is pretty similar. You know, the amount of growth that occurs is, you know, it's slow and steady. It's got to have consistency. It's got to be persistent, and you just have to do it.
Well, but there are some hidden benefits to that as well, because when you have had things happen where you make different discoveries, different people hear about you, you get mentioned on a podcast, and you have these spikes, or you go to another level, like when you redid all the covers of your books, or when you started doing the mailers and all that other stuff, you don't become an asshole. Number 2, you know how to handle it. And number 3, you just kind of, it doesn't phase you. Like you see these people that all of a sudden they go from making nothing to making a ton, and they think it's going to last forever. It's not. It's just never compare yourself to anyone else. Compare yourself to where you were yesterday, and keep growing.
Yeah.
Anyway,
that's the way it works. I thought we'd add in your new, I appreciate you giving me the opportunity
to share my Duplos that we modified to be able to do that. But it's true, man. I mean, you start thinking about adding all those different things, and all of a sudden you improve a little bit here, improve a little bit there, and it's a massive improvement.
Yeah. Break it down.
Exactly.
Test it out. I love it.
Okay. So what should people do, Stu?
Well, you should definitely sign up for the Facebook page, Sales
Copywriting and Content Marketing Hacks Facebook group.
That's a lot of questions in there. In fact, we get a lot of the content for this podcast from the questions that are asked in there. And,
absolutely.
And then you can also find these podcasts in there, as well as on YouTube and iTunes podcasts and Google Play, Spotify. Yep. So they're on all those stations.
Go sign up today. If you don't sign up for our podcast and you don't regularly consume our stuff, you're not serious about online business, and we don't want to be your friend.
But also check out thejimedwardsmethod.com, because that's where it's all at.
That's where all the cool kids are. Again, if you're not checking out the jimedwardsmethod.com, we don't want to be your friend. So on that note, I want everybody to have a great day. Thank you, Stu. This was fun. That's actually got me thinking, and I'm glad you got.
Oh, I know. I'm on to something right after this podcast.
Cool. Well, everybody have a great day, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye, everybody.